And I've had an opportunity over the years to work with many, many businesses and business owners and managers. Frankly, and I'm a pretty simple guy, but there are really three key questions that you have to answer. What, so what, and now what? The what are the trends that are going on that are affecting your particular business, the trends that are going on in your industry, and we're going to talk about those in a moment. So what are the implications to those trends? Both the implications for your industry broadly, but most importantly, the thing you care about in your business, what are the implications for you and your business and your team? And then finally, the now what? And that's the tactics. How are we going to get at those implications? What are we going to do to address them? And you guessed it, it gets harder as you go. Right? And just think of it as a funnel. The what's the broad, what's going on in the industry, the so what are the implications, and the now what, that's the tactical piece, and we'll talk about all three. Right now in agriculture, there's a lot of things going on. Don't need to tell you that. I know you know it. But there are some key trends that I really believe are absolutely driving the business where it is not only today, but more importantly, where it's headed in the future. And let me just share a few of those with you very quickly, or the key ones that I see. First of all, it's the whole issue around food and food production. We've got a lot of folks looking at our industry that have never really thought about our business before, but people today are absolutely concerned with where's their food come from, how it's produced, what's going in their bodies, what's the nutritional value. All of those things matter. And if we as an industry don't take it upon ourselves to tell our story in a much more positive and effective way, quite frankly, I'm worried that our future will get dictated to us by those who maybe don't understand how to produce food. Let me give you an example. Just the other day, I was in an elevator. I was at a trade meeting and, had the name tag on, and the word both agriculture and food was in the title of this particular meeting that I was at. Get on this elevator, and a lady that I didn't know gets on there with me, said hello. She sees the name tag and immediately starts with, "You're poisoning food." And her whole issue was pesticides as we talk about that. So we began a conversation. Well, it really wasn't a conversation. Mostly she was talking and I was listening, backed up against the elevator. But it was interesting, her point. She was just absolutely convinced that modern production of food was not safe, and that, chemicals were bad, and all those kind of things. And I just asked one simple question, and just to try to begin to maybe have a bit of different dialogue, I said, you do understand that in almost all cases, the people that produce food live where that food's produced. How many of them do you suppose get up in the morning and say, I want to poison my family today? Or the families of those who work for me? And at least it caused her a moment's pause. And actually I invited her, and we actually got out of the elevator on my floor and sat down there at one of the little settees by the elevator and just talked a little bit, because I said, I really want to know what you're thinking, because I work in the industry and maybe I can do something about it. So that, to me, is one huge driving trend, consumers and what they think about what it is that we do. Another major one that's impacting our business, access to capital. And this is true at all levels of the supply chain, folks. This is not just true at the production level, at the farm gate, or at the grower level, or the livestock provider. This is true for retail. This is true for distribution. This is true for manufacturing. Now, it may be lightening up a bit, but if we don't get and see some lessening, some loosening, if you will, of some credit policies by some lenders, it's going to have major and dramatic impact on our business, certainly in the short term, but potentially could have huge impact longer term. So I think that's another one that is critical. Along with that, and maybe even as an outcome of that, is the issue of consolidation. Now, I know somebody's going to say, come on, David, we've been talking about that for 40 years. Well, guess what? We have, but it's never been as accelerated as it is today. I had the opportunity to be in a meeting the other day, and just one industry, one piece of our industry, potatoes, had 30 guys in the room. There's about 1 million acres of potatoes in the U.S., and 600,000 of them were sitting in one room together. Now, that's consolidation. Right, so what are the impacts going to be? What's the impacts going to be for us if we're a manufacturer? What's it mean to us if we're in retail? What's it mean to us if we're a grower? How do we want to respond to that? We're going to have to begin to think about those kind of things. So again, we're in the what. Remember, the so what's coming, right? A couple of others, and then we'll wrap up. I think one of the other major trends is this whole issue around people. And when I think about it, I'm really talking about employees. Who's going to service this agriculture industry? Where are they going to come from? Especially managers. If you look around in our industry, best I can tell, and talking to folks and trying to see what kind of data is out there, we got somewhere in the 30 to 40%, folks, range of retail managers who will be retired in the next 5 to 7 years. Who's going to fill those spots? Where are they going to come from? If they're going to come from internal, that's great. Are we training them today to be able to take over those jobs? You know, maybe when they started in the business, they were running a $3 million retail business. Today, that's probably a $33 million business. It's a different kind of manager. It takes a different kind of talent. Are we ready for it? Where are we going to get them? How are we going to train them? Those become the implications, and certainly some things I know you'll think about later. And then finally, the shift in technology. I really have two areas, right? Production technology, absolutely incredible what the new genetics will do. Their ability to produce in various environments under incredible amount of stress. But think about the implications, right? Where might we produce a crop that we've never produced one before? Or how might that change a shift in patterns where particular types of either livestock or production agriculture on the food side, on the vegetable and grain side, where that happens? All of those things are certainly going to be impacted as we see more and more companies spending research dollars focusing on production technology. And then, of course, the other and final side of technology shift is the whole information side of technology. Folks, I'm just here to tell you, and many of you have been in the game as long as I have, in that 30-year range, get over it. Social media is not a fad, it's here to stay. Was with a group, mentioned that group of potato growers. Guess what? They've formed their own organization on Facebook so that they can communicate in very quick, real time together when they're out in the field talking to a processor, talking to a packer, talking to a retailer like Walmart, so they can talk to one another and help think about what's going on in our industry. That's powerful. If you're not playing, you're behind. So those are some of the major trends that I really see driving our business today. So again, as we go down that so what road for agri-marketers, you know, think about probably the biggest piece, folks, for us as marketers is so what is the impact on the 4 Ps, right? We got to think about, we know that we think about these trends, certainly where the customer is headed and our industry is headed has major, major change. But when we put our marketer hat on, we go back into the thing that we always focus on, and that is that marketing mix. So what does it mean with the kind of products we're going to make? What does it mean with the way that we're going to price those products? And do we have more than one model? Personally, I think the answer is yes, by the way. How are we going to distribute? When we think about place, right now, I mean, how are we going to distribute? Does bricks and mortar make sense? I got to tell you, I don't know. And if it does it make sense in the U.S.? Or should that new bricks and mortar investment be made in somewhere else around the world? Chances are maybe it should. And then finally, promotion. That may be the biggest area of change. And as you think about it from a marketer perspective, you know, without doubt, the mass approach is just not going to appeal, because we have really what we end up with is we have consolidation. We have control in the hands of fewer, larger folks. It needs to be about specific segments and markets of one. And I know a lot of you spend a lot of time doing that, but really challenge yourself and your companies. Are we really doing that? Are we really getting at the folks that are going to really matter 5 years from now? I use very simple language when I think about that. I always ask myself, who's going to the dance in the year 2015 and for sure 2020? Am I developing my promotion strategy for them rather than the folks who are here today? As a marketer, to me, that's one of your biggest challenges. I was with one guy, he had 40,000 acres himself. I mean, you know, this unbelievable. I mean, imagine the money. I mean, unbelievable. Oh, and there was there wasn't a local bank. The day I was there, in fact, didn't get to meet with the principal, met with one of the co-owners. He was touring around 2 bankers from New York, you know, to show them the business. I mean, there wasn't a local ag-oriented bank that could even play. I mean, he had 19 Peterbilt semis just to pull, and actually incredible technology. The technology that they use in Desert Storm is where they started it, and now they have it in Iraq. But I didn't even know this existed. But the U.S. military, for sand operations, they actually have on the great big trucks, the multi-axle trucks, they actually have on board a system, and the first part where it automatically deflates the tires, takes them back down to about 20 pounds of pressure, so they flatten out and it becomes more like a track, so that they can go through wet or sandy soil. Well, in potato country, oftentimes it's very wet. And they don't have a choice because if the spuds spoil, you've got a contract with Walmart. You own a lot of rotten potatoes. I mean, seriously. So anyway, he went and first of all, he bought 6 of these huge military-oriented semi-tractors that have front-wheel drive as well. So it was all-wheel drive. That worked okay. Well, that didn't work well enough, so he went to Bendix, who makes this system, and put it on all his trucks. So literally, they have this, and then they get to the highway, and they hit a button, gone. Unbelievable. So his potatoes don't even go to cold shed; they go straight to Walmart. I mean, that's just the kind of the thing. Well, they go straight to their warehousing. But he doesn't have to do them twice. He can get them to their packing shed. But it was with another guy. He's got the worldwide intellectual property rights to a new kind of apricot that's 25% sweeter. So it's primarily used for the confection industry. Well, just a farmer? I don't think so. Another guy, 2,500 acres of wine grapes. Now think about that. Most wineries in Napa are about 4 acres. He had 2,500 acres of wine grapes down in Lodi, down in the valley. He sells almost all the juice into Napa. Most of the Napa juice is only a little bit Napa. A lot of it comes from down in the valley because they just don't have the volume. But anyway, he has these stainless steel tanks. So, you think about oak barrel. Well, so like Hess as an example, he would sell into Hess. And so they say, well, we want oak. Well, they have a system they can inject oak flavoring in the stainless steel tank. It comes in there and it looks like a semi-tanker. So I mean, it's just the game is very different. And my whole reason for bringing all that up is the retail business especially has really struggled to get their arms around that because it's real impactful. I mean, if one of those guys leaves you, that's a big deal.